Hello, welcome to Garden Story Time. I'm Miss Joy with the J.C. Ralston Arboretum. We are so excited about bringing you fun online garden stories and activities this year for the new year. And in addition, we have some new programs to introduce to you while our garden gates are still closed. If you missed it, last Friday, Miss Elizabeth introduced a new Facebook Live event called the Family Garden Spot. But don't worry, if you missed it, we recorded it and you can go back and see it. Each month in the Family Garden Spot, Miss Elizabeth will introduce our monthly theme, and January's theme is flower bulbs. And so if you are interested in learning some great information about flower bulbs and how they work and even dissect one with Miss Elizabeth, you'll want to go back and check out that video that I just mentioned. In addition, I have some other exciting news to share with you. But first, let's get to our story this week. We are going to read That's Not a Daffodil by Elizabeth Honey. One day, Mr. Yilmaz from next door called in with a basket of apples and a crumpled paper bag. "What is it?" asked Tom. "It's a daffodil," said Mr. Yilmaz. "That's not a daffodil," said Tom. "That's an onion." "Well, let's plant it and see." So they planted the bulb with the pointy end up in a large, round terracotta pot. "There," said Mr. Yilmaz, patting it down. "That will grow into a beautiful daffodil." Tom watched the pot, but nothing happened. Nothing. The next time Mr. Yilmaz dropped by, he asked, "How's the daffodil?" "That's not a daffodil," said Tom. "That's a desert." "Then we will make it rain," said Mr. Yilmaz. So they made it rain and put it in the sun. When Mr. Yilmaz brought in a fine bunch of carrots, he asked, "How's the daffodil?" "Don't know," said Tom. "Well, let's have a look and see," said Mr. Yilmaz. "Now what do you think?" asked Mr. Yilmaz. "That's not a daffodil," said Tom. "That's a green beak." "So it is," laughed Mr. Yilmaz. From time to time, Tom measured the beak. It was growing, and while Mr. Yilmaz was away in Turkey, the green beak opened up. "How's the daffodil?" asked Mr. Yilmaz when he came home. "That's not a daffodil," said Tom. "That's a hand with 5 flat fingers." "Green fingers," agreed Mr. Yilmaz. One blustery winter day, Mr. Yilmaz blew in with a large pumpkin. "How's the daffodil, Tom?" "That's not a daffodil. That's Grandpa's hairs in the wind." Mr. Yilmaz chuckled. "He needs a haircut." It was pouring rain when Mr. Yilmaz brought in a bucket of lemons. "Ah, now we can see the bud of the daffodil," said Mr. Yilmaz. "That's not a daffodil," said Tom. "That's a wet rocket." "To the moon?" asked Mr. Yilmaz. "To the moon," said Tom. One day, Mr. Yilmaz brought his grandchildren to play, Layla and little Con and their big bouncy dog, Carabash. They were trying to catch Carabash when he bounded away and knocked the pot. "Oh!" cried little Con. "Call the plant ambulance," said Layla. "Mr. Yilmaz!" yelled Tom. Mr. Yilmaz helped them pat the soil back in. "Will it still grow?" asked Tom. "I believe so," said Mr. Yilmaz. "The roots have not been disturbed. Now give it a drink, Layla, and put some water in the bird bath, too." In a couple of days, the daffodil wasn't floppy anymore. "How's the daffodil after its little bump?" asked Mr. Yilmaz. "That's not a daffodil," said Tom. "That's a street light." Mr. Yilmaz smiled. "Shining yellow. Spring's not far away." When Tom came home from a weekend at his grandma's, he ran to look in the backyard. "Mr. Yilmaz!" cried Tom. "Mr. Yilmaz! Ask the question!" "How's the daffodil?" laughed Mr. Yilmaz. "Quick! Come and look!" "Oh," said Mr. Yilmaz. "Now is that a daffodil?" Tom nodded his head. That is a daffodil. Yes. But it's also a trumpet of gold. I didn't think that brown bulb was really going to turn into anything, did you? I'm glad Tom had a neighbor who helped him learn how to be a patient gardener. And now it's your turn. Remember I told you I had some exciting news to share with you? Well, this month we are introducing our new garden activity kits. Each month we will produce a kit for you focused on our monthly theme. Our growing kit this month will include a pot, soil, and your own bulb to plant. Also included will be one of our favorite garden books that you can add to your bookshelf at home. This month's book is And Then It's Spring by Julie Fagliano. When a young boy and his dog decide they've had enough of winter brown, they dig, plant, play, and wait for the world to turn green again. To purchase your kit, just visit the link shown below. Thanks for joining us today. And don't forget to check the JCRA website for more resources to help you learn more about flower bulbs this month. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks for another garden story time. Until then.